thank you very much for coming. I think that we're very lucky to have you all here and have so many family members who've been able to come from far away, other special important people who have made the trip here, and it means a lot to us. So thank you very, very much for that. We have a bunch of Ballantynes here, which is wonderful, and we actually have this date today, Sunday the 27th. It was possible for a number of people to be here, including Edith Ballantyne, who came all the way from Switzerland, and she's here today. Our third grandmother. We're so lucky we had three, and there she is. So, and a number of other Ballantynes and grandchildren, and even some of Tanya's grandchildren here today. So lots of people. In case you can hear them, yeah, exactly. So it's possible that not everybody know who everybody in this room is. Certainly I'm not sure who everyone I'm talking to is, but
there will be a quiz.
So yeah, take notes. But anyway, just in case it's not clear, Matthew, Josephine, and Angus, and we're Tanya's three kids, and Linda, her sister, one of two, and her brothers are here, and
Aiden and Derek.
Where are those guys?
And
Morna. There we go. So anyway, we're happy to have everyone here, and thank you again for coming. We were greatly touched and really appreciated all the different messages and calls and emails and things that we received back in June and even leading up to that. So again, thank you for those. And some of them got pinned up on a board, so you can, in case you didn't see them yourself or write them yourself, you can go and see some of what was shared. And
feel free to add anything as well.
Yeah, sure. If you have something that you wanted to add to those boards, you could do that. And actually, in about an hour or so when we're all done here, if there's something that any of you would like to contribute or share, then we'd be happy to hear from you too. I think one of the things I would really like to make sure everyone here understands is just how peaceful and gentle Tanya's passing was. And one silver lining, if you will, or at least a not so bad aspect of all of this, was that it's been kind of a long time coming, and we got to see it, and we had lots of warning, and we were able to prepare. And Tanya was in a very good place in the hospital, well taken care of, lots of people visiting her, and important people able to come and reconnect. So that was great. And we were able to spend, I would say, 3 weeks or so, basically 24/7, there was someone by her side. And I think that Tanya had a pretty good understanding of what was happening and what was going on. And it was about as gentle and nice as it could be, so very grateful for that. And there was, she died in her sleep and without distress. So that was good. That was a good thing. And so many people have unfortunate, shocking, horrifying, rending ends, and that wasn't how it went down here. So I feel like it was about as good as that could be. So very grateful for that, and just wanted to kind of set the tone that way and just put everyone at ease about that. She did not suffer at the end. So we're going to have a bunch of people have a chance to talk to us, including some professional and old friends who are going to contribute a little bit. Martin and Erica will have a chance to talk, and we have some representation from very far away that we'll do with a little bit of video, and Linda will talk, and the three of us. And anyway, so we'll just get going.
Hi, sweetie. So hi, everybody. I was initially just going to read a poem that I wrote for Mom, and then Angus encouraged me to share a little more. So I'm going to do my best to keep it together and say a little bit about Mom and our connection and who she was for me. In the months since her passing, memories well up. As a child visiting her on the plateau, her world was populated by wild and at times disturbing elements. Despite the craziness around, Mom's presence was always warm and comforting. On Clark Street, as pink was my favorite, she made a pink room for me with a pink comforter and pink sheets. The boys had blue, everything was warm and soft, and she brought hot milk and honey to tuck us in every night. Her house always had plants and books and music and lots of art supplies. As a teenager, on our annual mother-daughter trips to Mexico, playing naked Scrabble on deserted beaches till the sun went down. Mom teaching me to drive standard in an old Volkswagen Beetle with a broken headlight on steep, winding mountain roads, dodging chickens and donkeys and people. Bob Dylan on a tape deck in the back seat. Mom riding shotgun, so relaxed and confident that I could do this. No problem. And wasn't life an adventure, wild and sweet? Inoculating me with my first drink, a pina colada, for my 14th birthday. After a day at the beach, dancing and singing, and naked and sandy around the hotel room to Toots and the Maytals. Pure joy. When I first moved in with her when I was 17, we must have spent the first months talking nonstop. So much to catch up on. She in the bath, surrounded by plants, or me in the bath, or cooking, or eating, or walking on the mountain. I wanted and needed to know everything, and she was so generous with herself, and so open about her life with her mother, her life at the phone board, her life with my father, with us, how it all went down. So honest about her own confusions and heartaches and vulnerabilities. So attentive and caring as she listened to my own experience. Living with her, I was amazed that she would know and remember the minor and major details of my life, and she truly cared. I cannot tell you how astonishing and significant this was for me, like finding a ruby in my porridge. She held me when my heart was first broken, just holding me with her mighty, unconditional love. She always empowered me to be myself without ever trying to impose what she thought that should be. She truly wanted my happiness. We had some kind of amazing driving karma. The miles we must have clocked together over the years, house hunting in the townships, driving to Dharma programs in Vermont, visiting sacred sites in India, crossing the mountains of Bhutan, up and down the coasts of Mexico, on various post-production missions in the East End of Montreal, getting lost again and not really caring, always talking, arguing, laughing. She had such wit, such humor, such sensitivity, such a subtle and sophisticated understanding, such a vast vision. She was a confident and fearless traveler, curious and at home in the world. Mom had enough room in her mighty heart for beggars and prostitutes, those touched by madness and addiction and violence and poverty. She knew such sufferings in her own heart and saw and felt the human pain in others with fearlessness and compassion. Among her many gifts, she had the special power of seeing and understanding people, their fears and motivations and pretenses, and loving them anyway. Fiercely intelligent, she studied history and philosophy at McGill, and throughout her life was always seeking truth. What happened and what is really going on here? These qualities made her a great and provocative person, and also a great and provocative filmmaker. That vast mind, that powerful intellect, that quest for truth and understanding, that unflinching honesty, that genuine heart of compassion. She had a powerful, incisive, and insightful mind and was not afraid to speak it. She was never to be defined nor confined by conventional notions of propriety or gender. If she took her shoes off, or her shirt for that matter, it was not that she was trying to be outrageous or offend anyone particularly. It was because the sun was hot and she felt like it. Although these traits caused herself and others some trouble and made her relationships challenging, she was tremendously herself, elemental, a natural being and a natural beauty. She knew the ways of the earth and the sky, of plants and planets, the sun and the moon, the dark and the light, and was attuned to the subtle mysteries and beauty of nature and animals and spirit. Today, for instance, she would say, "Isn't it intense that my memorial is happening in conjunction with the rare super blood harvest full moon in Pisces with total eclipse?" A combination that hasn't occurred since 1982. She would also point out how beautiful the light is at this time of year, and how poignant the autumn equinox is, as the last breath of summer gives way to the deep blue and fiery leaves of fall. She was a creative force, making babies, paintings, films, photographs, weavings, poems, gardens, nourishing stew, and delicious pumpkin pie. She was a great dancer. Tanya knew she was a Buddhist when she read Meditation in Action by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche when she was pregnant with Angus in 1969. She actualized this connection in the 1980s when researching a film about Buddhism in the West in Nova Scotia. There she met His Holiness Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, and overwhelmed by a powerful sense of connection and devotion, took refuge in bodhisattva vows with him on the spot. He gave her the name Robsel Palmo, glorious, brilliant light. Her committed practice and study of Buddhism for over 20 years deepened her natural wisdom and compassion, and helped her to work with her darker aspects, her inner fears and obstacles. She brought her skill as a teacher and an artist to her Buddhist practice, teaching Buddhist philosophy and meditation, as well as Dharma art, a contemplative approach to creativity. Her Dharma teachings, full of love and wisdom, and expressed in her inimitable, earthy, and playful style, touched the hearts and minds of many devoted students over the years. I believe she always gave of herself, of her great kind heart and understanding, and helped and inspired many people throughout her life. Despite all her heartache and sufferings, or perhaps because of them, she always had such a dignity and courage. She never gave up. She was both ferocious and extremely vulnerable. Even toward the end, disconnected and foggy with her illness, I can see her sitting so tall and strong on the edge of her bed, regal, that light in her that would not go out. In her final days, herself to the end, dispensing with her sheets and her gown and her bandages, anything that constricted her, despite the nurse's best efforts to keep her decent. And Mum sitting straight up and crossing her legs like the Buddha she was. In that moment, her mind open wide and seeing well beyond the illusory and passing pain of this life. I remember and will never forget her soft, long, beautiful hands and how it felt to hold them and be held by them. Also, her laughter, melodious and unabashed, like sunshine, like thunder, like powerful joy. If one had the good fortune to provoke such a true and beautiful sound, such an explosion of goodness, one couldn't help but feel somehow privileged, blessed, a little bit proud. Since her passing, I have had several dreams of Tanya, and she's always laughing her magical laugh. She showed me all the important stuff. How to laugh until your belly hurts. How to give completely without expecting anything at all. That you can buy orange roses and enjoy them, even when you haven't much money. To be who you are, even if it makes some people uncomfortable. That people, including ourselves, are completely love-worthy, no matter what problems we may have. How to listen with your heart and see with the eye of wisdom. She was always absolutely there for me. She introduced me to the Dharma, for which I am eternally grateful. She loved me and helped me and supported me and inspired me in countless and profound ways. She was a loving mother, a true friend, an inspired artist, a genuine human being, a wise Dakini, and a mighty warrior. I feel truly blessed to have known and loved her so well, to have been known and loved by her so well. Her great mind and heart warmed this world and shine on, forever glorious and brilliant. Angus, who's Linda? Linda?
Oops. Tanya is gone now. It's hard to believe she's left us. It was very painful for me to witness her decline, to see her fade away. I remember her almost all the time now, in the warmth of the summer while taking a swim, when looking at the blueness of the sky and the colors of the changing autumn leaves, or as I ride my bike up the mountain, or as I walk through our neighborhood. When I have joys or sadness that I want to share. I miss her. My brothers and sisters miss her, and it helps to think back to when she was young and healthy, to when we were all just kids. The four of us, Aidan, Derek, and Morna, and me, got to know our sister Tanya as of the time she was about 9. That was how old she was when she first came to Geneva to spend her summer holidays with us, to be with her father, and to get to know Edith, her stepmother. Until then, Tanya's father, Cam, the father we shared, had traveled to Canada on numerous occasions to visit with her in Montreal. Cam and Tanya's mother, Irene, were divorced when Tanya was 3. Cam remarried and moved to Geneva, Switzerland, for his job. When Tanya was 9, Aidan was just a toddler, and I was just born. Later, Derek and Morna came along, and Tanya got to know 3 of us, at least as babies. Tanya visited us many times and regularly until she started university, and we, the Geneva family, visited Montreal many times over the years, and this provided more opportunities to be with Tanya. When Tanya was about 15, she spent an entire school term with us, and she even attended our school, all in French. The experiment was deemed such a success by the adults and the school officials that when Tanya graduated from high school at 17, she spent an entire year in Geneva with us before attending McGill. Her visits to Geneva were very special. For her, she told me that again and again, and even as recently as a few months before she died. And they were also so special for all of us. Our father adored her, and he was happiest when he had all of his 5 children with him. We all adored her, and we kids were in admiration of her and fought for her attention. We wanted her to hold our hand. We wanted her to play with us, take us to the park, be there when it was bedtime, and read us our bedtime story. We were a close family with lots of family togetherness and child-centered activities, lots of fun and lots of outdoor sports. We look forward to Tanya's visits, those special times together and times we spent at the beach on Lake Geneva and the Alps, hiking and vacationing in different cities and sites in Europe. It was always exciting whenever Tanya was about to arrive in Geneva. I couldn't get to sleep the night before, I was so excited. And when our father would drive us to the airport to meet her plane, we had this ritual of starting to scream in the car. I can see the airport, I can see the airport, I can see Tanya's plane, I can see Tanya in the sky. And soon enough, we'd be together again and cautiously and shyly get reacquainted with one another all over again, each of us a year older. And what felt like many weeks later, the holidays would inevitably come to an end and Tanya would head back to Canada to be with her mother Irene and back to her school, her friends, her other life, which we knew so little about. My siblings and I had lots of fond and happy memories of us being together. Not only was Tanya bigger and older, but she was also somewhat different. Dark-haired, very thin and lanky, with long limbs, long hands and fingers. And she had the smoothest skin in the world. And her skin tanned so easily in the sun, and she loved the sun and sunbathing, and she loved taking long baths. And I have memories of sitting on the toilet seat in this little bathroom in Geneva, just watching her and idolizing her and talking about who knows what. She was beautiful, elegant. She was very smart, original, sensitive, and very caring. She was self-confident and good at just about everything, an especially talented person. She was adventurous and explored just about every facet of the world around her. She loved people, she loved animals, horses, dogs, and cats. She loved nature. The trees, the plants, and flowers and the countryside. She loved to read and was so well read, and she had a keen intellect. She loved writing and drawing and painting, and she loved us, and we loved her, and we looked up to her so much. She grew up. She studied history and philosophy at McGill, and she was an honors student and set a high standard for all of us. She became a filmmaker and artist whom you all know, and we were so proud of her. She married, she became a mother, and she had 3 most wonderful and loving children whose side I am at today. The 4 of us, Aidan, Derek, Morn, and me, we also grew up. Each of us moved to Canada, to different cities, but we always stayed in touch, all of us. Tanya was always our big sister. We'll miss her, and we will remember her fondly.
Where's Angus?
Right here,
Oh, who's up next?
Madeline.
Oh, great, Madeline Murray.
Ready?
When Christopher Cordell introduced. I first met Tanya and Bruce in 1969 when Christopher Cordell introduced me to the legendary couple who were living in a sprawling old two-story wooden house in St. Andrews. Tanya and Christopher used to have intense discussions about the meaning of life and also about her quitting the film board. Christopher, who was an editor there, disapproved. But Tanya could hold her own against anyone. I was enthralled by her fierce intelligence, her strange links to the primal, and her exotic beauty. She was always interesting and told fascinating stories about her life, including her complex relationship with her mother, Irene. That summer, I drove with Nash Reid, a cameraman who also quit the film board, out to BC. We lived on the beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island until Bruce asked Nash to come back and shoot a film for him. So we drove back across Canada in the winter and lived in the St. Andrews house for several months. Angus was about 2 at the time. I was 22, totally self-absorbed, not at all domestic or helpful, but Tanya never complained. There were always interesting people around, great conversations, good food. I think Brad and Daphne were living in the barn then and building a catamaran. There was a lot going on and Tanya was at the center of it, the one who held it all together. She was like a mother guru to all of us, talking brilliantly, her long fingers emphasizing her thoughts, challenging, probing, prowling for the truth, always on the lookout for pretense or hypocrisy. She could be blunt and brutally honest. I was in awe of her and a little nervous. I went to Ireland, and when I came back in 1974, I once again hooked up with Tanya out at St. Andrews. The house had lots of rooms, all filled with things. There was a book room, a music room where I remember part of an acid trip with Ross, tripping out on Mahavishnu John McLaughlin. We felt free to be ourselves around Tanya. She'd seen a lot in her life. She had an ancient wisdom tinged with a primal darkness. I guess we all know the hardships that Tanya endured in the last years of her life. She was incredibly courageous and dignified to the end. I am so grateful to have known her. So we say farewell to my great friend Tanya, who changed so many people's lives, who touched everyone she came in contact with. She was a thrilling mixture of compassion and confrontation. Always honest, always real, always electrifying, always in my heart.
Martin, it's your cue. So that was Madeline Murray, sent that video from Australia. And very nice to hear about all these professional things. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from a longtime collaborator.
Well, having heard the 3 previous speakers, I wish I had spent more time getting to know Tanya personally. My relations with her were mainly professional. I shot 3 films for her at the beginning, in the middle, and near the end of her life. And I think I can say that she was one of those people who was a natural-born filmmaker, someone who knew instinctively what was needed with little formal training. She was passionate about living life to the full, about mastering a craft that could express those passions, about dealing with issues that concerned us all. The issues dealt with in the films I shot for her represent what one could call perhaps the three of the major stages of life. First was Merry-Go-Round, about adolescent anxieties. Then was Margie Gillis, about the creative challenges of a mature artist. And then Gross National Happiness, an attempt to apply the wisdom of the ages to the political realities of today. Tanya was always on the cutting edge, both artistically and politically. We were very lucky to have a person with her vision and skills whose body of work helped us to survive the increasingly disruptive forces of these past 5 decades. Her creative life has strengthened my belief that documentary film has a vital role to play in ensuring that human values win the fight against profit and prestige. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. That was great. And now both a professional and personal collaborator, Erica Pomerantz, has some remarks. And let's see if I can guess her height correctly. Yeah, well, it's an eyeball thing here. Let's see.
Hi.
You should be okay, just like
I'm fine. I have a big voice, project. So I wrote a piece about Tanya, which is a mixture of personal and professional. Tanya crossed every phase of my life, and I think I crossed most phases of hers, although there are some I must have missed out because we spent time away from each other and time together. But Tanya, some of those pictures up there, nobody saw her in person at that time, who's here today perhaps, but me. Because Tanya was my oldest friend. When I was a little girl of 2, she was 1.5 years older than me, and she pushed me in my baby carriage. Because our parents were friends, and we lived in the same apartment building on Ridgewood. And we went to the same nursery school, and our parents had the same political beliefs. They were in the Communist Party together. Irene and my dad were both in advertising, and Irene and my mother were both rather emancipated women who used birth control, although I think Irene was much more emancipated than my mother in some ways, because Irene was a kind of a, as they say in French, une phare, and she had a strong effect on everybody who knew Tanya, and people who knew Tanya got to know Irene, and Irene was surrounded by many people that Tanya brought into Irene's life and vice versa. So if you knew Tanya, you knew Irene. Now, as a girl, I always looked up to Tanya. She was like a formidable model for me because in some ways, being a kid of a communist, we were both red diaper babies, and my parents kept moving around, and I kept feeling I had to conform. And then every time I'd come up against Tanya at different phases of my life, I would see somebody who was not afraid not to conform, and she would give me the courage to go on and express myself and be who I was and not feel ashamed or weird because my parents weren't religious or things like that. So I remember at 5 or 6 years old, because I'm going with the personal memories now, it was my birthday party, and she was invited, and everybody was wearing frilly little dresses. But Tanya was wearing jeans and a plaid shirt, and she had a very short boyish haircut. She was like way before anybody. She was daring to express the many facets of one's gender. And later on, we saw each other quite a bit off and on through our teen years, but sporadically. And then at McGill, we got together again. And Tanya was in the middle of a kind of a left-wing, but not so orthodox, because there was a lot of orthodoxy among the left-wing students at McGill, but not Tanya. And she also hung out with very exotic people like Alex and David Dent, and we had our friend Patrick McFadden, who was a flaming red communist from Ireland, and we had like a sort of a group of friends with wild parties, and it was a very exciting time to be around Tanya at McGill. And she, being older than me, had similar experiences ahead of me, and so we actually had a few of the same boyfriends, but not at the same time. So we had this weird boyfriend named Colin Gravener, whose dad was a rabid right-wing sort of business mogul who was involved with people who ran Midnight Magazine, and the dad had this office at the Mount Royal Hotel, and he was anti-communist, and he wrote things against our parents' friends and stuff. But Colin was this sort of Peter Pan type guy. He was sort of magical, and he said he had no belly button, and he introduced me to the Beatles. And Tanya had, of course, been his girlfriend the year before. I came in second in line. And, afterwards, when we got together later in life, we would compare our experiences with our various boyfriends, including the bard, Montreal's bard, Leonard Cohen, with whom we both also had very passionate and cerebral flings, among others. So Tanya and I had an extremely symbiotic relationship, but we weren't always connected. But when we got together, it was like immediately. And I also had met Bruce, and Bruce and I had been sharing, we were the thespian friends at McGill. We were in the Red and White Review together. And all of a sudden, Bruce and Tanya were a couple. And I was totally amazed, because I'd never imagined Tanya to go for a guy like Bruce, because he was so wholesome and he was so un-left-wing and weird and stuff. And, this entered a new phase of Tanya's life, where she decided she was going to be in a couple relationship and have kids and create sort of normalcy. Because I guess her crazy life with Irene, she was reacting against that, and here she met somebody who was absolutely perfect for a partner with whom to raise a family. And I actually visited them in St. Andrews at one point when Blad Hansen was building that trimaran, and just like Madeleine Murray said, the house and everything had a magical aura about it. But before that hiatus came the film board period. 1966, I believe. So I will jump into my text here, talking about the things I cannot change. So Tanya and Bruce were both at the film board, and I was chosen to be a summer student there as I terminated McGill. And for a while I was working with Mike Rubo on a feature script, and then all of a sudden Tanya invited me to be her production assistant on Things I Cannot Change. And here was the Bailey family living in Little Burgundy in complete poverty. There was violence. The father was an alcoholic. The mother was about to give birth, I think, to her 10th child or something. It was an amazingly intense experience. And although I'd come from a left-wing background and my father had been poor as a kid, I had never experienced anything like that. And Tanya, who was, maybe 23 at the time, was completely, it's hard to say she was at home, but she was completely natural. She was able to navigate the complexities of this family where the kids were growing up deprived of food, of dealing with violence every day, verbal, I guess physical violence. And she knew when to open the camera, and she knew when not to shoot and to let things evolve. And we spent a long, hot, intense summer in the house on Little Burgundy. I think it was on St. Antoine Street, and with the father coming in raving, he just lost a job, and the mother crying or sort of swallowing her pain, and the kids running in and out and trying to deal with, avoid the father's wrath. And then she made this amazing film, which, of course, as many people know, was a very controversial film because it was one of the first cinema direct films which actually revealed all. And so there was a lot of controversy about whether the filmmaker should overstep the bounds of propriety and really show life as it was. And of course, Tanya revisited that same family, I think it was 20 years later, when in The Courage to Change. And there was a bit of anger, if not more than that, among some of the members. I think the father actually accused Tanya of having ruined his life, although his life was already in shambles when she made the first film. And she managed to brave the conflict and make an amazing second film about the same family and show how poverty had affected the lives of these children and the parents many years later, show the deep inroads that poverty has on the spirit of people. So after a hiatus in which Tanya remained in Montreal and traveled and made her films and raised her three amazing children, I'd been in the Magdalen Islands, and I came back to Montreal, and one of the first people I connected up with was Tanya. And I'd been making films on my own, more in regional Quebec for Télé-Québec. And after a couple of years, we got back together. And Martin was around at the time, at the exciting years when CIFC, the Canadian Independent Film Caucus, was forming. And it was basically a group of disgruntled or frustrated filmmakers who couldn't get their works produced by the film board because they were outside the film board, and they were asking for more visibility, more support for independent documentary. And Tanya was part of that movement, which eventually became Doc Canada, and spawned a couple of film festivals and hot docs. And but at that time, Tanya was becoming less politicized in terms of the filmmaking, the politics of filmmaking, because she had embraced Buddhism, and a lot of her social and spiritual life was more centered on Buddhism, whereas I was more sort of gung-ho into the political aspects of defending the documentary of film as a form. And we would get together in her place on de Bouillon, and she'd have these baths, and I would be sitting beside her, and we'd drinking our little glasses of rum and talking about different things. And I don't know how to tell you how much she influenced my life. She was a model for me on every major turn that I took. And I feel privileged to have accompanied her on a number of her projects as well. So we made Nurses Care, which was a series of, I think, 6 half-hour films on the nursing profession across Canada. And we traveled across Canada, and it was a co-production with the NFB, which by that time she had formed Pax Productions, her own company, with which Josephine became involved eventually. And it was basically, at one point, there was just the two of us and an old, one of those IBM computers where you had to learn F1, F2, and wait for a half hour for the thing to boot. And we had all our projects on the computer. And after we finished Nurses Care, we thought we would like to do a series on the role of women as primary health caregivers. And we decided it would span the world, span the globe, and show women in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, and First Nations women in Canada as pillars of healthcare in their communities. So we wrote up the project, and we submitted it to CEDA, which in those days had a fund to support filmmaking of that type. And we got a grant, and off we went to West Africa. And you can see some of the pictures of our trip. I've put up a little album there. So Tanya was my first companion in Africa. And of course, that changed my life because I've been going there ever since. And we went to Guinea, and then we went to Guinea-Bissau, and we went to Senegal, and we went to Nigeria, believe it or not. We made it in Nigeria. And we had a lot of adventures there, some of which it's too long to get into, but we actually had a fascinating time meeting women dealing with basically issues of malnutrition, birth control, which of course there's not much of. We met a lot of birthing attendants in Guinea who would give birth to women just lying on the floor. They didn't have any equipment, and they were doing an incredible job. This particular clinic where we did our research in Consuta was considered the best clinic in the whole of the country. Even people would come from the capital city to give birth in this little country cement-floored birthing hospital, because the women were excellent midwives, and they were midwives from mother to daughter, and they had not had any official training. So at that point, we were working with NGOs, Canadian NGOs, that were giving support to these different healthcare workers. And so CECI, which is a Quebec-based NGO, was our host there. And we were following basically projects where Tanya and I were meeting birthing attendants who were beginning training in sort of modern sanitation techniques. So anyway, we had this amazing time in Nigeria. We nearly got arrested just walking and filming in little streets behind the main street, which is like a village, and in Guinea-Bissau, where we saw the corruption. For example, we met with the Minister of Health, who was the aunt of a friend of mine living here in Montreal, a refugee, and she was very forthcoming. She said, we can't go out into the villages. We can't take you to the maternity clinics in the villages because we have no vehicles. And we looked out in the parking lot, and there were at least 10 to 15 ambulances and white trucks there with UN painted on it, or UNICEF, but they'd all broken down. They'd been given as gifts, and the country had no spare parts to repair. So things like that. So together we discovered the realities of Africa, but we also met amazing people, wonderful people, the people who are working with the CECI office, etc. So, I mean, anyway, there's lots of information. And out of that experience came the idea, because we met midwives who were rebelling against female genital mutilation. And so out of that came the idea to make a film about women's role in stopping female genital mutilation. So it took a couple of years to hatch the film, and I was going to direct it, and Tanya was the producer, and we actually didn't get much funding after the research phase, but the film ended up getting produced by Monique Simard. But thanks to Tanya and Pax Production, I was able to make that film, and she stayed with me through the years of development. So those are some of my professional experiences with Tanya. But in terms of the global picture, I think she's like such a profound effect on me. When I found out that she was sick and that she had had heart problems, I visited her a couple of times, and her pacemaker had been put in, and she had struggled so hard to accept that she would have to slow down after she had made the film in Bhutan with Josephine, that she realized she would probably not be making films anymore. And she said something to me which I couldn't believe, that she said that she was ready to go, but because of her children and her grandchildren, she was going to keep on living. And that struck me as such an amazingly generous and unusual way of expressing that she knew her days were numbered. Now, I must admit, I'll tell you, that I feel I'm still dealing with a lot of almost guilty feelings for the fact that I didn't see Tanya in the last 2 years of her life. I was in Mali myself during the coup d'etat, because I ended up getting married in Mali, and was spending a lot of time with my husband's family and with filmmakers there, working on a film about women who were not able to express themselves and stuff like that. And Tanya was with me all the time in my mind, and a couple of times I had dreams that she had died while I was in Africa in the past 2 years. And I had lost her phone number, so I wrote Craig, and I didn't have the right email because she kept changing emails. So I wrote Craig Lapp, and he wrote me back, and he gave me her phone number and an email, and I wrote her, and she wrote me back. She said, I'm fine. And so when I came back from Africa the last time, I kept saying, I have to go and see Tanya, go and see Tanya. And then I got a letter from Linda telling me that Tanya, my oldest, dearest friend, was no longer. And so I miss her terribly, and I'm very happy to be here with the family, at least I feel she's with us here today.
Thank you very much, Erica. Josephine said earlier that I'd managed to encourage her to speak a little bit longer, and I'm very glad that I did, because I think she did a great job of telling us about my mom and saving me having to do it. So. The bath, unorthodox, unusual, independent, I saw my mom die like 3 times in the last 5 years. Like in the movies, you know, with the paddles and the whole thing. So, kind of like what Erica was saying, it became time. And I have a word, grief. My poor mum. You can see the transformations from tall, willowy. The poor thing was not well. But she was amazingly circumspect, and she took it. And considering most of the times I would call her and she would complain to me about anything, because that's kind of the dynamic that we had a little bit, she didn't complain too much about being sick. And I admire her for that. So anyway, we went through this crazy period in the hospital where we were there a lot and all the rest of it, and very busy and dealing with things, and I don't think that... I was kind of afraid this would happen, is that here it would kind of hit me with like a ton of bricks. So thank you very much, all of you, again, for coming and for all these wonderful things. I would say that I'm going to live my life and have trying to channel the values that my mom taught us all. And you heard a lot about them, and, you know, consideration and acceptance, turning the other cheek, and sometimes, like, just again and again and again, to the point where someone who is not quite as enlightened as I could be says, "What in the hell are you doing this for?" And make a decision for you instead of letting the world wash over you. But we can see that that was not how she lived. So I'm very grateful for all the comments and your presence here today and these different perspectives and the chance to look at all these photos and realize just how much more life Tanya led than those last 5 years where she was restricted and restrained and unwell. It wasn't her life, the last 5 years, what we're hearing about. It really wasn't. I mean, she was still there, and it was a very debilitating thing that slowly eroded her and took her away a little bit at a time. And I'm sorry that she won't have more time to spend with these grandchildren that you see running around and sitting in various places and sharing everything that you've heard about just now with them. So it's going to be up to us to channel that and keep it up, and every day I try and try. So I'll never stop doing that. Irene, that unorthodox background, that exceptional world that she came from, this independence and desire to do only what she wanted and never mind what anyone else thought. It was almost like too much, She would come over with her dog, unleashed, who would bite my neighbor, and I'd have to spend... spent a year trying to recover from that one. I moved away, and I gave her my car before I moved away, and she sold it or got rid of it while I was gone, and I came back, and I was riding around on my motorbike. I'd gone to Magog to buy cheese and had a bag full of stinky cheese, and the police pulled me over on my motorbike. Sir, we need to arrest you. What? Well, your car, you never paid any of the tickets on your car. But it doesn't matter. Look at that. So a piece of work, who made a lot of great work, who did a lot of great things, and I'm so thrilled, again, just to hear the positive effect that she had on so many people's lives, and what a source of inspiration and light. So there she is with Steady. Steady, where are you? Stand up. Look at he's big, huh? Dax, you stand up too. Look. So her first grandchildren, there they are. Steady, they say you look like me and that I look like her, so what do you think? You don't know? A little bit. Well, anyway. So I hope that the conflicts, the contradictions, God, Irene was like contradictions personified, embodied on earth, right? And so no surprise that my dear mom should have that too. I hope that wherever she is now, she's going to find some peace and resolve all of those things, and that she can keep that little smile going forever. So that's it. Thank you again very much, all of you, for coming and for showing your respect and appreciation for my mom. Matt, your turn.
So, it's amazing to hear these people, my brother and my sister and family and friends, speak so eloquently and extensively and so skillfully about Mom. And, they've said so much. It's hard to know what I could add. But I did write a few notes and would love to share them with you. And it really is, I guess, my incredible, great, amazing, inconceivable good fortune to have been born the son of such a woman, truly, because due to her, I have it all. Really, due to her kindness, I have it all. That's not a joke, and that's not an exaggeration, truly. So, I wrote like just various notes in my little book, and they're sort of all erratic, and then I tried to tie it all together, so it's kind of like a treasure map, where I have one bit, and then I have to go a few pages over to get the next bit, and back and forth, so please tolerate me if I go a little bit back and forth. And some of these things have already been said, but I have a list of qualities, some adjectives to describe my mom. Allowing, forgiving, accepting, non-judgmental, direct, open, honest, sympathetic, playful, mischievous, kind, understanding, philosophical, connected, earthy, generous, brilliant, perceptive, insightful, tender, sad, spiritual, mystical, relaxed, authentic, unpretentious, outrageous, unconventional, free-spirited. Gullible. In the sense that we're all gullible.
In the sense that you could trick her on the phone.
Yeah, good sense of humor. Someone that was a joy to make laugh, and she had a great sense of humor, and she was a great listener, and she was so easy to be around that all of one's true qualities and true colors could come out. So I had a lot of fun, just enjoying entertaining her and seeing how much I could make her laugh, and see how much I could, if she was grumpy, see if I could pop her out of that. And what a victory to get that rolling laugh a-going. And then, she would say, okay, that's enough. And then see if I could get another one, and then it would go. And then she'd say, okay, now stop, and get a little bit upset. That was great. As probably many of you know, I was, separated from my mom when I was very small, and, grew up mostly with my father and my brother and sister, and didn't have, for most of my youth, I didn't have what I would say a very strong connection with my mom. I would see her at Irene's, I would see her once a week, here and there, and I loved her, and she was my mother, and, obviously we had a strong connection. She was my mom, but I didn't feel kind of the importance or the significance of that relationship so much, and or so compelled to kind of seek her out or spend time with her. I was preoccupied with other things. I was more interested in, what my friends were up to, what my brother and sister were up to. It wasn't so appealing to me. But I can say that when I was suffering the most, and when I went through my crisis of the soul when I was 19, and I was severely depressed, extremely anxious, really in the darkest place of my life, that coincided with a time where I went and lived with Mom for the first time, and where I discovered just the most incredible friend that a person could possibly have. Someone so completely open and allowing and non-judgmental and forgiving, that all the things that I felt so terrible about, so completely horrible and ashamed of, were just like no big deal to her at all. So that was like the best healing medicine in the world for me to be exposed to. And whereas I was incredibly, secretive and sort of complex and manipulative and all kinds of smokescreen in my mind, she was just so honest and out there and true about her confusion and her experiences and her quote-unquote mistakes and her life and her, questions, that it was just like a great example of how we could, relate to ourselves and just not give ourselves such a hard time. And I really needed that. And not only that, but she actually gave me a book called The Myth of Freedom and the Way of Meditation by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who also wrote Meditation in Action, which Joe mentioned she read in 1969. And when I read that book, I felt like, why is it that no one's ever told me this before? How come have I been deprived of this information my whole life? And how valuable it is, and how incredible it is that we're all searching for some kind of happiness outside in all these things, and we're always coming up kind of disappointed. And not only that, but time's running out, and then we're going to die. And so what is the meaning of all of this stuff that we're all getting so anxious and stressed out about and working so hard for and exhausting ourselves? It was like, yeah, we're going to die. So what is this all about? What are we up to? And what really matters? And what really doesn't matter? And I think that, when we talk about Tanya, we have to, she was a Buddhist. So if you want to know about Tanya, then it's good to know a little bit about Buddhism, which is, some form of renunciation to just, first of all, acknowledging suffering, which Tanya, we all know, she did very well. She wasn't shy about saying, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's so tough. Yeah. That's why it was relaxing to be around her, because you could suffer, and you didn't feel like it was a problem or there was something wrong with you because you were suffering. It was more like, yeah, that's how it is. It's kind of the human condition, and everybody's got this basic anxiety. But then also to know what the cause of the suffering is, which is just this kind of self-importance. And then having some kind of acknowledgement that this is a problem. And then to want to kind of turn away from that and actually open your heart and open your mind to something greater than this finite, limited, conditioned existence that we have. And develop compassion for all beings who are all in the same soup, suffering. And developing insight and wisdom into our own true enlightened nature, and then practicing to make that a living reality. So this is what, just a brief synopsis of what Dharma means to me, and what, I think also explains a lot her journey and her longing for understanding and freedom led her ultimately, such a brilliant, smart, right? Like incredibly smart woman. And then she met her match, finally, with, the Buddha and the Buddhist teachers. They actually were able to kind of like have the last word. Did anybody else have the last word with Tanya? So that's pretty cool. And I'm not saying that she mastered Buddhism in her life, but she did take it to heart. And she did definitely work on herself. And the thing about it is that it's all happening inside. So you don't necessarily have, it's not necessarily obvious to the outside observer. But I know that my mom in her life, with all the kind of claustrophobia and rebellion that she felt in relation to her mom, all these conflicting roles, all the things that she wanted and at the same time couldn't tolerate, and wanting to escape, through the course of her life, Tanya took more and more and more and more responsibility. And responsibility for her family, responsibility for her choices, and she made peace, and she healed relationships, and she wanted to, and she was willing to, and she was ready to, and she did it with me, for one, and I saw her doing it with her mother, as hard as that was for her, because we all know, how that could be for her. So that's all beautiful, really beautiful. And the importance of family, At the end, she didn't have time really so much to see many other people, and she didn't really want to see many other people. It was like, the list was very, very short, and it was mostly us three, and then a few other people here and there, but not much, because that was really what was most important, and it is what's most important. And her mind, like if you look in some of these pictures, you can see this look that she has is a no-nonsense, no-bullshit look. And she was not a bullshit person. And towards the end, it was like a lot of the usual stuff that we're all so concerned about, she couldn't care less, really. She wasn't so interested in a lot of stuff. Now, you could say, well, it's important that she makes an effort, and yes, and there are other people around, yes, but on the other hand, she kind of was shedding all the superfluous and getting ready for what was coming, I felt. And at the end, she was ready to go. And I think that that's also a mark of a good practitioner, someone who's letting go, getting ready for the big letting go. And at the end, she was quite ready for the big letting go. And I know that she is now in a better place because she dealt with her karma, and she's no doubt continuing to deal with her karma. But on it goes, and she's moving in the right direction. So that's a great example. And I concur with everything that's been said so far about her, which is all beautiful, and honor it so much. She had the butterfly tattoo, which is, telling. It's the cocoon, the claustrophobia, the ego, the dark, the dank, and then spreading the wings, being free. She was Tanya Tree. She was rooted, earthy. She was branching out. I had written here a typical kind of conversation that I would have with my mom maybe like 10 years ago or something. Or, no, not 10 years ago. More than that. Maybe 15 years ago, this would be a typical kind of conversation. Call her on the phone. Hello? Hi, Mom. Oh, hi. How are you? Oh, hot. Yeah, it's a nice day, isn't it? I find it very humid, and the moon is in Scorpio. I want to lie down. How was your audition? She always remembered exactly what was going on in my life. She would always be aware of that. Oh, not too good. I was nervous. I don't think I'm going to get it. Oh, it's so awful. I don't know how you managed to do it. Well, it wasn't so bad. You sound tired. Maybe you should take a nap, Matt. Yeah, maybe. I'm going to take a nap. Hey, Ma, I wanted to tell you, I met a girl. When's her birthday? I'm not sure, actually. Find out when her birthday is. Okay. Hey, can I eat over tonight? Sure, I'm just having pasta with the red sauce. Sounds good. I'll get a Caballero. Okay. I love you, Mom. Okay, bye. And, Mom also endearing and also embarrassing quality that she had was that she, wasn't very subtle. So again, someone who's kind of repressed and anal retentive like myself, sitting in a restaurant and someone would come in and she would say, "Who's that?" really loud, such that the person felt like they could hear and say, "Oh, that's so-and-so." "So-and-so?" "Yeah, Mom, it's so-and-so. You're talking loud. He can hear you." "I have a loud voice." So, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche said that the three of the hardest things we have to say in this life are hello, I love you, and goodbye. And I'm so glad that I had the chance to say hello to her so many times, and that I was able to tell her I love her so many times, and I still love her, and I always will. And I'm so glad that we all get a chance now to say goodbye. And goodbye, Mom. Thank you.
All right, and now for some entertainment. Once husband, I think, is the term we've agreed on. The wasband? The wasband. God, I hope I'm never a wasband. Anyway, Bruce is going to play a song for us. So give us, I guess, 15, 30, 45 seconds to switch around. Not too long.
Biographical material, a treasure trove, and autobiographical as well, which makes it very, very interesting. To add to the autobiographical, I live in Williamstown, Ontario, which is in the heart of South Glengarry County. And the settlers had a gift from the glaciers to deal with besides trees. The gift was a plenitude of rocks and stones in the retreat. So all of the settlers who cleared trees also had to clear rocks, and lots of them, stones. And affectionately and ruefully, the hardworking people of that county started referring to those rocks as Glengarry gold. And so those rocks have a little bit to do with a little song that I'm going to sing right now, and I just wanted you to be aware that rocks are a lot of things. Now, I'm possibly incapable of reading this without my glasses. And Glenn, how are you feeling? This is the first, I've got to get into music. We got to start to feel it a bit because we've been sitting still. And let's hope this is going to work. Pardon, what? Bruce. Bruce is loose. Try to get loose. All right, I'm almost there. Okay, Glenn, what do you think? Let's go. Walking through my field of stones, inscribed the names of people I have known. The field is in the mist, it's in the do. Right now I'm remembering you. Memories hang like paintings in my mind. Melting, freezing, shifting all the time. Holding it all together like a glue. I'll always remember you. Drifting in the darkness, dissolving in the night. We're drifting all together, and we're traveling to the light. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Long, long road, and now you're here. Our mission bells are sounding loud and clear. We're all casualties of life, now something new. And I'll always remember you. Your father and your mothers, your sisters and your brothers, your children and their children, and the things I cannot change. Plateau, Montreal, Geneva, Brown, New York City, Montreal town, Lower East Side, Verbier, San Miguel de Allende. Long, long road, and now you're here. Oh, mission bells are sounding loud and clear. One more thing you know is true. I'll always remember you. Drifting in the darkness, dissolving in the night. We're drifting all together, and we're traveling to the light. It's all right. 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 It's all right.
All right. Well, thank you again very much. In case there is anybody that would like to say something, now would be a great time. You're welcome to come on up and address the audience if you wish. I would. You would? That's great. That's great.
No, I'm okay.
Don't go too far with those. Johanna Nutter.
Hi, Joe. It's neat to see people I haven't seen in a long time. I just saw Ross, and he did this, and yeah, I'm 45 now. I've had a lot of experiences in my life. The absolute best experience ever, still, after all this time, is one New Year's Eve when we used to hang out on Clark Street, and Glen was right across the way, and there was old Devonshire School, and they would make a skating rink there every winter, and we would love skating there. And we were really excited about being able to get up in the morning and go skating, but it had snowed all day, and then it started raining. And we came stomping back into the house, all upset that we weren't going to be able to go skating the next day because the ice would be bad. And Tanya went and found us brooms. She had like these janitor brooms, and she just gave us these brooms and said, well, go deal with it. So we went out there in the rain with these brooms, and we started sweeping the snow off the rink, and then we spontaneously started singing, sweeping in the rain, just sweeping in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. And it's still to this day the best time I've ever had. And I was lucky enough to be raised by a lot of people. And Tanya was one of them. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you, Tanya.
Zoe, would you like to say something? Come on up. That would be great. Did I tell you how much I like your shoes before? Look at those.
What are you going to say? Want to say something about Grammy? Oh, no. Change your mind? She's very sad. Everybody's crying. She's very sympathetic.
It's okay.
You want to say something to Grammy? No? Okay. Change your mind? Okay.
Don't worry. Like Poppy said, it's all right, It's all right. It's sad, but it's all right. And she's better off. And she lived so much. All right, time for a glass of wine. Anybody?
Last call.
Felicity.
I just want to briefly say on behalf of 3 women who adored Tanya, who are not here today, that their hearts are with us. We heard from Madeline Murray from Australia, but also Maxine McGillivray from Victoria, BC, and Judith Amanoff from Paris, France. All asked me to express their love for Tanya and how much they are here in spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicity. Yeah, Maxine in particular sent a variety of great messages and also some wonderful photographs, so thank you for that. And any of you who have some that you'd like to add to our collection, we'd be happy to get them, so please feel free to send them our way. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so that's it. I've been in touch with Erica, and it seems that they're organizing, there will be a retrospective of Mum's work at the Cinematheque, we think in early December. So people are interested, we'll probably just send another email maybe to the people on the list that we sent for the memorial, just to keep people informed about that. And there are a couple of articles being written and things, but... Right. Yeah. Is Matthew Hayes here? He's yes. Hi, Matthew. Hi.
I teach Tanya's films in my classes, and I show them every year. They're miraculous. She and I had a tete-a-tete for a while, but we made up in the end. On Facebook, it was wonderful, and I really loved her in the films. So Lauren's here too. We teach her films all the time. She's
Wonderful.
amazing. They're incredible documents.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you can watch them on NFB, right?
Yeah, and they're on the NFB site, and I've been hounding the RIDM, the local documentary film festival, to show her films. When a few years ago I said told her I've been hounding the RIDM to have you in, and we should do a master class of your films. Because she made The Things I Cannot Change when she was 22.
Yeah.
It's miraculous. I mean, if you look at it, it's such an incredibly passionate film about poverty in Canada. And for all of its issues and problems that it raised, it's an incredible document. And it's a tribute to her humanity, what you've all been talking about. So, incredible.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I sing Amazing Grace with Tanya?
Sure.
That's quite a choice. It's like a slaving song.
Full of amazing grace, with all the sides of facets of her character, some of which were in the light and some of which were in the shade. How sweet